Appreciate that validation. All right. Welcome to Void Signal. This is the Halloween special. I am joined by, this is kind of a break from tradition, break from format. I'm trying to do something a little bit different, but I have a co-host for this episode. That co-host is AJ.
Hello.
Hello. Your voice might be recognized because, like, on some previous episodes, I had you, like, do my little intro things, which I dropped. Like, I thought they were fun and cool, but, like,
yeah,
it was kind of a pain in the ass to, like, get people to do them, and, you know.
They were cool.
Thanks.
I liked them.
I thought
more people should have sent you some. Hint, hint, guys.
Yeah, that was my thought too. But no, don't drop hints because I'm not going to bring them back. So I don't want. So don't send me one because I won't use it. Don't get excited and be like, oh, and no, it will not be used. The format for this Halloween special is just that I don't know. I wanted to hear what stories people had about, like, the paranormal and stuff. And I personally, I mean, I guess I'll go ahead and preface this by just saying that, like, I am a skeptic. I'm
not surprised to hear that.
I mean, it scans, right? Like, that's kind of how I read. I'm a skeptic. I'm firmly, staunchly atheist. I've experienced things in my life that I don't have significant explanations for, but I could make guesses. But I'm going to save, like, kind of my own story for kind of near the end. I'm more interested in hearing, like, what other people have experienced. And the idea for this whole thing came about because I saw the film Ghost Watch not long ago, which was, like, it was like a call-in show for, like, you know, a ghost haunting kind of a thing. And I was like, how cool if we did that for the Void Signal.
Yeah.
So what about you, AJ? What's your stance on ghosts and all this?
So it's hard to say. Like, I don't always necessarily, like, I don't want to say not believe, but there's a little skeptic inside of me, but also not really. I don't know. Like, I'm open to the possibility, I guess, is what I'm trying to say here.
Okay.
Very open to, because, like, you know, I've heard the phrase before, magic is science we just haven't figured out yet, you know? So maybe there's just something we haven't figured out yet that in 100 years will make perfect sense to us now that feels like whatever it is that feels mystical now might make sense in 100 years. I don't know. But I'm open to hearing all possibilities, I guess you could say.
Sure. Yeah.
And I haven't really had my own experiences. It's like I've heard other people's little things, and I'm like, okay. And you know, when you have your own experience, it really, like, shocks you, and you're more likely to, like, you know, and I just haven't had that, so.
No, I agree. And, like, the people who have experienced it firsthand, because, I mean, you know, I grew up around people who certainly had. And, you know, when these people share their stories, like, there's it's authentic. It's genuine. Like, this is a person who was scared by this. Yeah. Yeah,
you can tell in the way they're telling the story usually that, like, they truly believe what they saw. Like, they're not just like making something up in thin air. It doesn't have that feeling or vibe to it. It's very real.
Yes, agree. So, and you know, in the spirit of that, like, if somebody tells me, like, a good ghost story, like, you know, something they've experienced, like, it will have that effect. You know, I'm a skeptic, but, like, you know, I get weirded out, like, when I watch horror films or hear ghost stories and shit like that, because I don't know what it is. And I don't want to immediately discount someone's personal experience, because sure, there's plenty of hoaxes and plenty of mistaken identity. But I mean, there's also, like we were just saying, like, the people who, like, they saw it, they experienced it. It was real for them.
If you really think about it, too, there is, like, so little we actually know about the world. So, I mean, who's to say?
Sure. All right. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and listen to one of these. I had people send in stories, and shout out to my homie Morris Black for helping me get stories.
I heard he's a super cool dude.
He's all right. No, seriously though, like I love that guy to death. Like I'm not trying to put him on
Yeah.
blast or anything, but like fucking love him.
12
So
out of 10. One of my
yes.
favorite people in the world.
See, I give him a 20 out of 10, so maybe I love him a
Oh my
little bit
God.
more than you do.
All right. That's probably true, though.
Yeah.
It's fine. I can accept second place.
Yeah,
That's
fine.
why they call me a participation trophy wife. You're the real trophy.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
All right. So, anyway, all right. So, which I sent you the link to these stories that I've gotten.
Yes.
Is there one in particular that you want to start with? Like, I've heard almost none of these. The only one I sampled, only one of them, which was the first one that
Which one was that?
It was the one from Jamie Blacker from Electronic Substance Abuse. He was the
Let's
person...
start with that one. Actually, because
okay.
he does not live in the U.S., right? He lives out in Europe somewhere.
Yes, he is in...
I bet weird shit happens out there.
Yes, his is the only story that I kind of heard a little bit of, and I was like, all right, good. And plus, he helped reaffirm that, like, this was a good idea, maybe. So,
oh, nice. Okay. He's so sweet. I haven't talked to him really a lot, but, like, I hear a lot of good things about him. He sounds like a A+ human.
I would agree. Yeah, absolutely. I met him. Yeah. I mean, I've known him, through the scene, like doing scene stuff for a little bit, but met him for the first time at Mechanismus, and was so sweet. Like, he's just one of those people that's like, they're open on all frequencies. So like, they're easy to talk to and like, can be, just sort of, what a presence, you know what I mean? Like a real person. So.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, let's start with his.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so
perfect.
And ready to play, and
I'm gonna take notes too.
Yes, me too. So
I feel like that was a brilliant idea of yours.
Oh my God, thank you. Just because, like, fucking, I might want to talk. I
forget things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if one of these is actually like 20 minutes long, I'm not gonna remember the whole thing.
No,
I'm just not.
No, me either. And yeah, this one is 22 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So
okay, perfect. We're taking notes.
Okay, so what we will do is we'll just go ahead and start at approximately the same time, and then we'll just reconvene after, I guess. Like. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna start mine, and I'm ready to start mine in 3, 2, 1. All right. I'm gonna count it down. Are you ready, AJ?
Okay. No, hold on.
Okay. You're okay.
Okay, sorry,
I know you've never done this.
Auto-playing.
No, it's fine. You've never done this before, so it's fine. Like me and Brian, we did a thing where we did we shared music and we like reacted to it at the same time. That was remarkably fun. Like stupid.
Oh, that sounds remarkably
we felt
fun.
like total dicks, like being like, oh, we're reacting to music and shit. But like it felt.
Yeah, but like with the right person, that sounds like a fucking blast.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be. So I'm excited for how this goes. Maybe it'll be shitty. Okay. I don't know. We'll see. All right. So now, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. All right. So starting it in 3, 2, 1.
Hi, this is Jamie from ESA, and I guess I'm going to tell you the story of where I grew up. I'm speaking to you from a studio in West Yorkshire right now, which is near a town called Huddersfield, which is where I was born. And we moved as a family when I was around about 18 months old to a small town called Howden. Now, Howden is not known for anything in particular other than the fact that it has a disproportionately large minster, which you can find online, Howden Minster. I think it dates back to like 1100s. I don't know much about the minster other than it had a couple of fires, which... When I was a kid, I was almost sure that I heard a story that a circus came to town and the church didn't want them there. So the circus people burnt the church half down. Whether that's something I've just made up, I don't know. But it definitely had a couple of fires. So it was always kind of like in repair mode, right? Now we moved to a house that was called 5 Churchside, which was, as the name suggests, directly the side of the church. And the proximity of the house to the church was probably about 10 to 12 feet, maybe a little wider. About 10 to 12 feet from the side door of the church. So all that row of houses, including mine, was basically built on, well, you can imagine consecrated ground. It's all, there's going to have been, used as burial area for at some point between the 1100s and, when we moved in, which is like, I guess, 1982. God, that sounds old. So 5 Churchside was a big townhouse. It used to be an inn. I believe that was in 1849, as per my update discussion with my parents yesterday, just to get my details right. So it probably dates back prior to that, but it was definitely an inn at 1849 and then used as a townhouse after, maybe before as well. So I don't really have a lot of memories of that house that don't involve the knowledge that it was haunted or that there was just something really weird in that house. There was always an accompaniment to our family. So I'm going to go through a list of the kind of experiences that I had, my parents had, my brother had. And I do apologize because I may flit around in the timeline because as my discussion with my parents about this last night, it's really difficult to remember when things happened in the timeline of living there. We lived there for 17 years, I believe, maybe 16 years. But I think I was around about 18 when I moved out. So around about 16 years. So I do apologize if I kind of like flit back and forth. Now, the early days, living in the house, I don't remember a great deal because I was very young. So a lot of the early stuff is going to just be experiences that my parents have told me about. One of which being that I would basically sit in the middle of the room talking to someone. And when my parents would ask who am I talking to, I'd be like, the old woman or the old man. Definitely not a Steve who's 5 years old who plays catch from down the road or anything like that. One of my earliest experiences of anything kind of like weird was basically being laid in bed and hearing the piano tinkle downstairs in the study. It was then moved to the green room later on. That's not backstage, it was a green room, right? But I would be in bed trying to get to sleep and, you'd hear the piano tinkling away. Not playing back or anything, but just a couple of notes and you'd be like, okay, here it goes. Now, I don't know if the experiences were connected, but I also remember hearing what sounded like somebody ascending the stairs. And then a few minutes later, I would hear someone breathing next to me. Now, I remember the breathing feeling like it was an old man. That's the character that I associated with whoever was stood next to me. It felt kind of old, not threatening, but not particularly nice, and a little bit unhealthy. And at the time, and I do remember this kind of brain, this kind of function of thinking, I was shitting myself, but also thinking I'm just gonna get through it because there's nothing I can do. This is where I live. Like this is the only place I've known, right, from being young. So you just gotta get through it. So yeah, there'd be this breathing going on, and then it would just slowly disappear, and I could finally get to sleep. In that bedroom, there was always a kind of a projection on the wall that was a projection made out from the street lamp outside, which was probably, I don't know, reflecting something from the minster, but there was always a screaming face on the wall. Every night for 16 years. Now that's very subjective. You can make, faces out of anything if you try hard enough. But that's just something I always remember. Just a screaming face, long, narrow mouth. And that was my good night image. I'm just going to walk you through some of the experiences that my parents had. Maybe I was too young to have been around and conscious through all this, but they were in bed one night in their bedroom and they would hear a baby crying. And my dad got up to find where this baby is and just couldn't find it anywhere. Walked around the whole house, walked around outside, could still hear it when he was outside. And then come back in and, looking for all the cupboards and wardrobes and all the little, hideaway places you get in those old townhouses. And there were a lot of little hideaway places and it was weird. But couldn't find this crying baby. And then obviously that just disappeared. I'm trying to work up in like severity and extremity, like the impact of experiences a little bit. But if I don't quite manage that, I do apologize. A couple of other things. We in the living room, we would have a draft come in through the room at like 10 o'clock every night. Sorry, not every night, but it would be, at the same time. Every few days you get a draft and the curtains moved. And on one occasion, we had a Bible box in front of the window, the main window, and that slowly opened up. From my dad's portrayal of it, he just thought it must have been like one of our cats inside this Bible box, but there was nothing in there, and it slowly closed again. Like the draft thing, you can kind of explain, right? Maybe there's an explanation there, but like a Bible box opening and closing very, very slowly is probably not as explainable. Now, this happened in the living room, and this was the location of probably the most threatening experience, and it happened to my dad. And by the way, just as a caveat, my dad is a really kind of cynical person. He's an atheist, yet most of the experiences did happen to my dad. My mum, not as much, even though she's much more open and, I guess, anxious and a worrisome person. But a lot of this happened to my dad, and I always felt like it was maybe either picking on him or trying to, like, communicate with him as, like, the ruler of the household. I don't know. But this particular experience, my mum was ill with, like, a mild flu or a bad cold or whatever upstairs, and my dad came down to the living room to sleep. He was on the couch, and he woke up to have two hands around his neck, applying pressure, basically feeling like he was being strangled. Obviously, waking up with a cold sweat, and I don't really know what happened, and I talked to him last night, and he couldn't really tell me how long it was for. We're talking probably about 30 years ago here. Maybe longer, maybe 35 years ago. But then it released, I guess. It must have done, because he's still around. Now, we had many people come into the house during the time we were there, and my mum had friends come round, and all of them would, or most of them would kind of, say it doesn't feel great in a polite way. But my mum had a particular friend called Jean who came with her father. And there's a couple of stories there. Her father couldn't stay in the house. Maybe he was particularly sensitive, but he couldn't stay within the house. He had to leave, and apparently he was quite sick when he left. And Jean, I don't think it was the same occasion, maybe a different occasion, but she was in the bathroom. She saw an old lady walk past we had like a second bathroom. There was a first bathroom, and then this weird little second bathroom where my dad used to shave, and it was horrible. Like, just gross feeling. Now, not long after, I experienced the same thing. I don't know how old I was. I want to say like 12, maybe. But I saw the old woman as well. Just kind of drifting through from one bathroom into the next, which was nice. Speaking of things that were actually seen rather than like heard or felt, my mum saw somebody in armor walking down the hallway. I can't remember if she said if they were walking away or walking towards her. I think walking away, and then just disappeared down the corridor, the hall, whatever you want to call it. So, that was like a blast from the past. That's, we're talking, I don't even know when people wore armor. I'm guessing like 1300s, whatever. So that was something that my mum actually saw. Another notable experience would be when we heard my brother coming downstairs. We thought it was my brother. Left through the inner door. We had two doors, like the inner door and the outer door, to get outside. Basically, open the inner door, close it. Open the outer door, close it. And then 5 minutes later, we actually heard and saw my brother coming down the stairs. So whatever had come around the first time was not my brother, basically. We just kind of presumed it was, because there was nobody else in the house at the time. Now, we decided to move from this house when I was around about 15, I want to say. And we moved to a different property called Halegate. I think it was 5 as well, 5 Halegate. And we did that because we wanted to downsize. The house was too big. I don't know if we were having financial problems or whatever, but we were basically wanting to downsize. So we left that house, and it was virtually impossible to sell, to the point where we ended up coming back and living there again because we just couldn't sell it. But I'll come back to that in a second. I started to experience things happening at the new property not long after moving there. And when I say experiencing things, kind of mild stuff like the bathroom taps would come on, right? The sink taps or the bath taps. And I remember seeing a picture upside down as well. Not particularly, nothing cinematic like in a horror film where you see a picture of Christ upside down. It was basically like, like a landscape picture or something. Now, whilst we were living at the other property, my dad was doing work on 5 Church side. I guess just little odd jobs, making it more sellable, things like that. And this is one of the most notable experiences that I think he's ever told me. When he was there on his own, he was basically backing up the 2 flights of stairs. And he was kind of rolling up the plastic vinyl transparent covering that you roll up on stairs. And then when he got to the top of the 2nd flight of stairs, he kind of backed up and he hit something or, something pushed against his back. And he knew it wasn't the wall because the wall was probably, another 6-8 feet away. And then he realized it felt like 2 hands basically applying pressure down on him. So he basically... This is what he told me. He basically had a conversation and he was, he decided to communicate and tell this thing that we would be coming back. We can't sell the house. The family's going to be moving back to 5 Church side. And eventually it let go. Now, I don't know if that's just because we'd lived there for so long, it didn't want more... like a different personnel within its environment, but it's an interesting line of dialogue. So we moved out of this house when I was about 17, about 18. And I don't know much more about the house afterwards other than the fact that 2 prison wardens bought it after us, a couple. And my mum and dad used to have a shop in Howden, and they came to visit my mum and dad and said, we've got the house now. We can't go backsies. But did you ever experience anything in that house? And then, my mum and dad had to be honest and be like, yep. So it was obviously doing things to the couple as well afterwards. So at least it's some sort of validation that we weren't all crazy. Now, I want to kind of come into the current and explain kind of how this has impacted me in general. I think there's 2 things I want to mention. The first one is I still have a lot of nightmares about that house. Like, we lived in a lot of houses, after that and, moved around, lived in a lot of places. But I don't have dreams about them. And you might suggest that, you have a lot of dreams about your childhood house because that's when you had most experiences. But I dream a lot about that house. And they're never good dreams. They're always, there's something ominous, there's something going on. It's always very cold feeling. And it was a cold house. Like, my only memories of that house is that it was cold and I never felt comfortable. And I always thought there was somebody there. And I always felt like something was about to happen. Now, I spoke to my brother about this probably about 2 years ago. And he said the same thing. He said, that he was also having nightmares about that house. And I said to him, is it about a particular room? Like, are the majorities of your nightmares about a particular room? And I don't remember if he said yes or no, but basically most of my nightmares were based in a room in which I very, very rarely went into. Basically, the outside of the building, we had a pantry, and we called it the outbuildings. And then upstairs from that pantry was like some more just really dilapidated rooms with holes in the walls and things like that. And I guess when it was an inn, it was used to kind of barrel keep and, bring down the barrels, things like that. So I rarely went into that room, but I have a lot of nightmares about it. Like even now, like we're talking, I've been out of that house for 28 years. 28 years. I still have nightmares about that room. And I still get a very uncomfortable feeling whenever I think about it. And if I allowed my imagination to go wild, I would feel like something happened in that room that I've kind of just put away, just put in a box. Something when I was very young, maybe. I don't know, but I feel like there's somebody in there. That's how I feel when I think about it now. And it feels like an old woman. But I want to just kind of register this and really kind of put across my way of thinking, and that is that I am not religious, and I would probably consider myself an atheist, and I'm very cynical. I always think there's an explanation for everything, but I can't explain those experiences. The closest thing I could do to explain it is that, when you're alive, you're giving off lots of magnetic waves from your brain, and when you're experiencing something stressful, like, I don't know, suicide attempt, or, someone's trying to get you, or, just something that presents itself as like a really severe emotional state, then you're giving off more kind of energy from your brain, right? And it just kind of gets captured and it might get replayed. That's the only way I can describe the things that happened to us, because I struggle to connect with the notion that there can be an actual interaction between like a spirit and somebody that's current. But all I can say is it was fucking scary. Like there was the sense that I can't do anything about it. I've just got to get through it. We don't have anywhere else to live. Just hold your breath and deal with it till it's over. Because it always ends, right? An experience. But yeah, I'm not even gonna try and pretend that it didn't frighten me. And I think even now, I think more so now, as an older person who's had experiences that developed fear from, I think it would affect me a lot more now than it did do when I was a child. With regards to how this has impacted me as a person, I don't know. I mean, Brian asked me to kind of cover this, and I just don't know if it impacted me when it comes to inspiration for the music. I just don't know. I mean, it all comes from somewhere, right? I mean, I didn't have the greatest childhood. I was bullied. I was very different, and I felt very irrelevant and very ugly and very pointless when I was a kid. And not a lot of that was due to school, basically, like social situations. But living in a house that felt mildly threatening all the way through my childhood, I guess it's going to have some sort of impact. And as far back as I can remember, I've always liked dark stuff. Or I've always felt inclined towards dark stuff or connected to it, whether it be movies or music or imagery. It's just always been there. And if that's connected to the house, then maybe something good came out of it, because I've managed to make reasonably decent music out of it. But I just don't know is a simple answer. So I'm going to wrap this up by bringing us into the current. About 2 months ago, I had a dentist appointment in Howden, because my dentist is still at Howden. And I wanted to go visit the property and kind of like give it a knock on and speak to the owners and just be like, this is my childhood home. Spent, a really long time living here when I was a child. I'd love to see and reconnect to the house. Fully expecting them to be kind of like, who the hell are you? Go away. But I just wanted to kind of give it a shot, even just knock on the door, even just to see them open the door, even just to see like the entrance, right? And I got there and I walked up to the door and I walked away and I walked up and I walked away and I just couldn't do it. Like I could not reconcile with reconciling that house. And it sounds really dramatic and it's probably more dramatic than it needs to be, but yeah, I just didn't want to be there. I had thoughts of kind of entering the house and having whatever was in there kind of go, oh, hey, he's back. Let's reconnect. So I couldn't do it. And I wish I could give a more climactic ending. But yeah, maybe one day. But not for now. So that is my story of 5 Churchside. If you think it's all complete bullshit, I won't blame you in the slightest. If you're a non-believer or less open, all I can tell you is the things that me and the family experienced. And yeah, I guess happy Halloween.
All right, what's your reaction? What are your thoughts?
See, this is what I'm talking about. Like, I 1,000% believe him.
Yes.
Like, just like in the way that he was talking about it, you know?
Mhm.
Like, I 1,000% believe him. 1,000%. It's
Yes.
so tricky, right? Like, when you don't have, like, quote unquote proof yourself, it's like, but like, I totally believe him. That was so crazy.
Yeah.
Like, that needs to be a movie or something. I mean, not really, but
I mean,
like, that reminded me of like one of those crazy movies, you know?
yes, I got chills from his stories at times just
Yeah.
because of the delivery and like the way, and I also greatly appreciate being very fair in his recollection of like,
Yeah.
you know, the brain seeks
Right.
our brains seek faces. We'll make them out of nowhere.
Right. Yeah.
But it still didn't change the fact that like his recollections were haunting. And yeah, like I absolutely believe him.
Oh yeah.
And
Like, could you imagine just like feeling like you're being choked?
yeah,
Like, that's not a feeling like that's such a specific feeling that doesn't happen to people every day. Like, you
Yeah.
remember that. Like, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but like, I feel like that's something I would distinctly remember happening to me. And there's like not really many explanations if, you
Right.
know, you're home alone one night, or, you know, I don't think he really got into like who was home or whatever, but like, you know what I mean? Like, if I doubt his family was trying to choke him out, you
Right.
know?
Yeah, and nonetheless, like his dad's recollections and stuff, like, oh, you don't tell your kids like, oh, I experienced this fucked up scary thing in our home, like, because you don't, like, I mean, I would imagine you're not out to like traumatize your kids and be like, hey, why don't you stay
Right.
awake all night thinking about the fact that this happened to me?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like, and I just. Yeah, like
You know what else was really interesting was like, I can't remember at which part or which house he was at when this happened. I believe it was the first one. But he was like, they were talking to other people who had like had weird experiences around the house and got that validation that like, okay, we're not crazy.
Yes.
Like, weird things happen. Like, that makes it super, super interesting to me too, because it's like more than just Jamie and his family. It's like people from the town. It's like a big thing. It's like a
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
Like a folklore almost.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it was the people who bought it like after them, and like
Yeah.
well, yeah. I was like, okay, yeah. That I found that very compelling.
That was very compelling.
The other thing that kind of stuck out to me is just something that I don't know, popped into my head, was that the idea of like, you know, he's talking about growing up in a part of England, and, you know, consecrated ground, and there's a church here and all this kind of stuff. And it got me thinking about like condensed human populations living and dying kind of over the same ground for generations and generations, especially,
Right.
you know, in Europe, where you've got the Black Death and wars and purges, and like human cruelty has been allowed to flourish in this place.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't really want to say that, like, you know, like I said, when we started, I'm a skeptic, but like, I don't know. There feels
That was such
something,
a convincing case.
yeah, and there's something that feels ominous about like, oh, a fuck ton of people have died and suffered here. Like,
And you know what else I think was interesting too? Like, you know, history of the house too. But like, everything I've ever heard about like ghost experiences, like I heard in this story. Like he was talking about how when he recollects or he thinks about the house, he remembers it just being cold. Like that's a thing that happens when ghosts are around. Like the temperature drops. Like, well, I've at least heard that being a thing, you know, like
Sure.
it tracks. It tracks. It all tracks.
Yes. Yeah. It flows with like the mythos, I guess.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. There's nothing that's odd, like, okay, but that could have been this, you know, like.
Right. And he accounts for that. I greatly respect him for that reason of like, you know, memory. Humans are faulty. Like we can, you know, things are. I am a proponent of Occam's razor. Like the simplest explanations probably is the right one.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know.
That was very convincing. I 1,000% believe him, especially just, you know, that's why I kind of wanted to start with him first, remembering he's over in Europe. Like, there's so much history in that land because of, like you said, the wars, the illnesses, like just everything. Like, crazy stuff has to happen out there.
Yes.
Like, if ghosts are real, they exist in Europe for sure.
Yes, we
for
have to,
sure. They all at least at minimum live in Europe.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We have to import our ghosts here in the States because, you know.
Oh, we made our own.
Yeah, I was going to say
but...
we have certainly made our own. I just want to I want to say this really quick. I feel compelled to mention this though. Is that we actually don't know how bad it was because there was a inland empires of indigenous people. There were entire islands in the Caribbean that were depopulated due to first contact with Europeans and like disease. So like there was a germ holocaust that basically took place on the North American continent where entire civilizations were wiped out. So
just some good old fashioned bioterrorism.
Yeah, just like, this person's sick. They go to this village for help and it spreads and like people. And so we really don't know what the population was here. Because we like, who knows what uncontacted
no one was keeping
people.
Track.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We have no way of knowing.
Right.
So, yeah, that's a thing about history that I just want to.
That's so haunting to also think about.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Oh,
that's and there were for you for bringing that up.
And historians of the time talking about an island with millions of inhabitants that's empty years later. Like,
oh my God.
And
that's so terrifying to think about.
Yeah, I mean, we don't get to know the countless victims of like, you know, this thing. But yeah, anyway, I just wanted to mention that. Okay, so do you want to move on to the next story? Do you have any final thoughts about Jamie here?
No, I 1,000% believe you, Jamie. 1,000%.
Yeah, me too. And man, what a great story. What a great delivery. Like,
it was such a great delivery. Yeah.
So I'll pick the next one then, since you picked that one. You mentioned European history and how that's where the ghosts are. So, so the other...
I like my specific things.
Yeah. I prefer European ghosts, all right?
Because I'm pretentious.
Right. Mildly racist, maybe? That's a joke. That's a fucking joke. But... all right, so I will pick the next story. So, you know, speaking of Europe, one of the other stories that I got is from my friend Tom. Ginger Khan is his stage name. He was the first frontman for Priest. Has moved on, did a brief stint with Brides of the Black Room, and now has his own band, Udad. And
cool. I like that name.
Yeah, it is.
It's a great name.
Yeah, it's pretty rad. It means undead in Swedish.
Love it.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So, I guess we'll listen to his story. Are you ready with it?
All right, perfect. Let me load it up real quick.
Let me do the same. I want to make sure that we're getting this right and not fucking it up. I know.
You know what? Even if we fuck them all up, at least we got one right, and that's what counts.
Yeah, I like the way you think.
I think we're better than that, but like, you know, we did one, and that's good enough.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I am ready.
I'm ready too.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Hi. My name is Tom Åsberg, and this is my story. I grew up in an old mining town. You know, one of those towns that's been around forever. Just the actual mine itself is over 700 years old. and the town that sprung up around it was called Falun. Countless of generations of workers have lived there. All of them, of course, leaving behind their own mark, not to mention their earthly possessions, and of course their homes, which were inherited by the next generation of workers and the next, and so on and so on. Now the old workers' neighborhood is where I grew up. It was called Älvsborg. In a way, it's almost a cliche version of what you picture in your head when you picture Sweden, at least nowadays. Wooden houses, some of them really small, all interconnected with relatively tiny streets, and painted in that classic red color, which you see all over Sweden, that just so happens to be named after my town, Falun Red. Now, back in the old days of the mine, this was not a pretty neighborhood by any stretch. The entire town was covered by this thick layer of smoke emanating from all the ovens, melting down the ore from the mine. Nothing could grow there. Like, imagine Mordor. That's how it looked. And those wooden houses, back then they were basically all black. Black from just the general soot in the air. Now, the whole neighborhood was plagued with drunkenness. There was a bar on every corner, a lot of random street violence, not to mention the fact that people died like flies in the actual mine, churning out copper to fill up Sweden's war coffers during the 16th, 17th, and 18th century. Now, with all industries, sooner or later things start slowing down. Either because the thing you're producing has become obsolete, or because it's not profitable anymore. And of course this happened to Falun and its mine as well. The smoke disappeared, and Falun reshaped itself into another version, and another, and another. By the time I came into this world, Falun was a hodgepodge of different historical eras built on top of each other. And growing up in such a place, a few times, both during my childhood and even into my early 20s, I got to experience firsthand just how much of a presence people that have lived in such a place can leave behind. My earliest memory of experiencing something out of the ordinary is from when I was around 5. I came into my room, this was during the middle of the day, and I came upon an old man and a slightly younger woman just standing in my room. I don't know why, but for some reason I didn't feel any fear. I was just confused, like, who were these people? Why are they in my room? And he just stood there and looked at me. Now I noticed that they weren't really in the room. They were sort of a part of it. Like the line between the walls and the air and them, it was just one thing. And they flickered like a light, vibrating almost. And now the old man, he had a really stern look. He looked like a principal almost, a stern father figure. The woman had a softer, sweeter approach. She looked like she wanted to comfort me or greet me, or it's hard to tell. I'm also not entirely sure what happened next. Did they just disappear? Did I leave the room? Like I said, I was around 5. Now I understand that a story like this, emanating from the memory of someone who was a small child at the time, might be easy to dismiss as just something that, you think happened to you as a kid. But this was not the last time I would see this odd pair. They stopped appearing in the middle of the day. Usually when I saw them, it was at night. Once again, I totally understand how anyone that hears a story about someone seeing effectively ghosts at night could easily dismiss it as being a dream. But I've never had reoccurring dreams, and never any dreams as clear as these were. I started pretending to myself that this wasn't real, which is an odd thing for me to do, because I consider myself to have an open mind. I rationalize things, even when they're fantastical, especially when they're fantastical. But for some reason, I didn't want to rationalize this, or I couldn't rationalize it. Sometime in my later teens, I mentioned to my mother that I had been seeing things at home off and on during my childhood. She later mentioned this to our landlord, who knew exactly who they were. They were the old owners of the house. He knew them by the description which I had given to my mother. I think that the reason to why I choose to pretend like this didn't happen for such a long time was because I was really, really scared. Because that initial fear that had escaped me when I was a kid, it really took hold later on. When you see what I saw, you don't get to choose your reaction. And my reaction was apparently to just decide that I was not going to have a reaction, because this was not happening. This did very little to keep my two house guests away. Though, as I came into my 20s, their appearances started becoming more and more rare. And towards the end, they weren't even figures. They were just a vibrating shimmer in the air. Until around when I was 24, which is the last time I saw them. Now, even with our landlord telling us that they were the old owners of the house, I still don't know what I saw. I don't really care either, to be quite honest. But I do know one thing. No matter how sure you are of yourself regarding how you would react when seeing or experiencing something like I did, there is nothing to prepare you for that guttural feeling when you know that what you're seeing does not care if you believe in it or not.
All right. Thoughts?
Do you know what trips me up also?
What?
When someone who has an experience of seeing a person goes to another person and describes that person or that experience or gives them a description, and this other person is just like, oh yeah, I know who that is exactly. And these people, it's very plausible to assume that your friend did not meet these old people in while they were alive.
Right.
So it's just so odd.
Yes.
That he had this description, he gave it to his mother, the mother tells the landlord, and the landlord's like, oh yeah, I know exactly who that is.
Yeah. Oh, do you mean old Bill and Susie? Or, I mean,
right,
not
or
Swedish
whatever,
names. I couldn't produce Swedish names. But yeah, it adds that layer of validation to it. That's
yeah.
My grandpa had a similar story that he relayed to my older siblings, not me. I was very young. But he had a story that he told my mom as well of he was driving back to town. He lived in rural Mississippi. Driving back to town, sees somebody on the side of the road that he knows. Somebody from the town. Pulls over, picks him up. Oh, I'll give you a ride to town. Gets him to town. Drops him off. His friend's doesn't really talk much through the ride. Seems a little strange about it. But my grandfather takes him to his destination, drops him off, and was just like, I'm gonna drop you off here. I gotta run some errands, okay? And doesn't say anything. Never sees him again. Finds out he was dead as of that morning. So yeah, I don't know. Like, and it's like the weird sort of like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to drive for here, but that weird kind of like connection of like knowing the person, knowing a validation of like, you know, I don't know, like just the thought of like coming to somebody and being like, hey, I experienced this thing, and somebody else being like, well,
Oh yeah. That was old grandpa who owned the property 200 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
what?
Yeah, or find it like I guess what I'm like trying to dial in on is that realization, that sudden fear of like, in the case of my grandfather, of like being told like, hey, your fucking friend was dead at the time that you supposedly took him for a ride. Or in the case of Tom, of like, you know, imagine your mom coming back and being like, yeah, dude, the landlord said he knew who those people were. Like,
right, knowing full well that Tom did not meet these people ever.
Right.
Before moving into this property.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
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 Oh, and those nightmares too. My God.
Yeah.
Thank God they stopped. Like, that sounds great. I'm so happy they stopped for you, friend. But, that sounds...
Yeah, same.
Ugh.
Yeah. And especially, I do like that Tom touched on it being a mining town and like a northern climate. Like, hard lives. Like, this is, you know, going back to that idea
old
of
mining
like,
towns are like ripe with like history and abuses and all kinds of, like, when he said, oh, I grew up in this old mining town, I literally said, oh yeah, out loud, because I knew something good was coming. Like, I just knew. Yeah, I loved that. And I also really like how, like, before, when he started his story, he painted a picture of the town. Like, I really like those old mining town stories, so like I could really picture it all in my head as he was just describing it. So I really appreciated those fine little details. It was really nice touch. And he also did the same thing Jamie did with saying like, okay, like, look, I was a kid, guys, but
yeah, exactly,
this happened, but also I was a kid, but also this was very confusing for me.
Yes. And that was, I mean, like, that was another thing that I definitely appreciated about Tom and his story, is just the, you know, the acknowledging the conceit of it, of like, these are my limited experiences, but like, you know, this is what it is. Yeah, I was big fan of that. But the other thing I just want to mention that I'm really glad that he did too, and is very similar in tone to something I'm going to say during my own story later on in the show, which is being skeptical of things and being like, you know, this is a thing that like maybe you'd want to believe it. So being like extra skeptical of things that maybe are difficult to prove, or maybe seem like it's not outside your reality. Suddenly you're like, you got to be extra skeptical.
Sure.
Because, I mean, who are you? And, you know, that suddenly the laws of the universe would be violated. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like, it was really interesting how he was like, oh, I have this open mind, but like, nope, I decided this did not happen. Because, like, yeah, like you said, it really tests that, like, I would like to think I have an open mind, but if I experienced, like, hands around my throat or something, like, violent, I would be like, nope, that did not happen. You know? Nope, block that out real good.
Yeah, yeah. Ooh, bury that deep. Yeah.
Yeah, bury that in the box to never come out ever again.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, do you want to choose the next one, or?
Yeah, let me look at this list. Okay. Let's do Nyxx.
Nyxx, okay. So, you were just, you know Nyxx. You were just hanging out with her.
I do. I now officially have met Nyxx. She is such a lovely person.
Absolutely.
She's so precious. I think she's so great. It was really great to hang out with them.
Absolutely agree. So sweet, like, very fun, like, big fan of her personality. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah. Yeah, we, towards the end of the night, we ordered Domino's. Like, when was the last time you had a Domino's pizza?
Not in a long time.
Oh my God, it was the best. It was so nostalgic and perfect. And there was Fanta. Ugh.
Okay, can I tell you why I don't eat Domino's pizza?
Why?
Because they're pro-life.
Oh
And
my
they're
god,
like,
I'm never gonna eat them ever
they're
again.
like anti-choice people.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah, sorry.
Man, no, that's okay. Cut this out. I don't want to be a chump. No, I'm just kidding. No, before
Nobody
that,
can
it had
know that
been a
I
while.
violated my ethical.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
But it was just such a fun night. And like she brought out these two little chairs, like one for me to sit in, and like we were just hanging out in her front yard and I was just sitting there looking cute. And if they needed help with anything, I was just there to help or whatever. But I was mostly there looking cute. But like when's the last time you just hung out in someone's front lawn?
A while. A long time.
Right. It was just so nice.
Yeah.
To just hang out in someone's front lawn in the middle of fall.
Yeah, that sounds really pleasant, actually. And plus,
It was so pleasant.
you like ordered pizza and like got to talk. It sounds wonderful.
Right.
You didn't know you
great.
were eating anti-choice pizza at the time, so.
I didn't, and I wish I did, but that's okay. We know better now moving forward.
Right, exactly.
Mhm.
Anyway, yeah, sorry. Gotta drop that reality.
That's okay.
Okay. So Nyxx is a good choice. I got to meet her at Dark Force Fest, and she is lovely and wonderful. So, all right, let me get this loaded up, and then.
Yes. Oh yeah, I'll do that too.
I know that she did. I only heard like maybe the first couple. This one is short. But she did say
Bless her heart.
in the.
Too busy for a long story.
Yeah, it's fine. I just appreciate anybody sending anything in, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, she did apologize for it being short and for sound quality.
She's so sweet.
But incredibly sweet. Incredibly sweet. All right. So I am loaded up and ready whenever you are.
I am.
Okay. All right. 3, 2, 1.
Hello. So I apologize in advance for the audio. I am on unbeknownst to me counterfeit AirPods. So I'm going to tell you a good ghost story because I'm sure it's going to get plenty of spooky, scary ones. Essentially, my grandpa haunts me, and in the best way possible, because I was 4 when he passed away, and I was obviously the apple of his eye. So I've had like a lot of experiences with him after he's passed, and but this was the first time like I had ever seen him. So it was probably October. I'm probably like 10 or 11. I'd have to go outside to get my outdoor cats to bring them inside before I went to school. So that's what I was doing. It was very frosty. I remember the grass had frost and was crunchy, and no one was out at that time. So I'm looking around for the cat, and I smelled cigarettes like so strong, like someone was smoking right next to me. I look around, no one out, no one driving by, nothing. Whatever. Get back to looking for the cat. And then as I'm looking under the bush, out of my peripheral, I can see clear as fucking day, a dude walk from like the side of my house out towards the street. So I snap my head up and I'm like, hey, it's like, I'm going to fucking kick his ass as an 11-year-old. Obviously no one there. So I ran inside and I told my mom, and I'll mention that she is a clairvoyant. So this didn't come as any surprise to her. And so she was like, well, what was he wearing? I said, well, he had a black trucker hat and a black puffy like bomber jacket and dark jeans. And they smelled like cigarettes, and like explained all of it. And she goes, oh, no, that was Papa. And like, that was the answer for me. Like, because I had had so many experiences all the way up until then anyway, so it wasn't a shock. And so yeah, that was the first time I saw like my grandpa's spirit. But I later found a picture of him from when he was younger, and that was like his favorite go-to outfit, and kind of mine too, so that's funny. But yeah, ghosts. Ooh.
Wonderful.
She is so stinking cute.
I know. It's like sickening. It's like,
I know.
It's like, hey, can you just stop being so overburdened with all this personality?
I know. Give some to the rest of us. My God.
Yeah, like really high charisma rolls on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just tell you really quickly, I love how she was, this so tracks for her. She was just like, I'm going to kick his ass. And she's 11 at the time.
Yeah. Sounds about right.
Like, she just sees this guy walking around her house, and she's like, where are you? I'm going to kick his ass. Like, yeah, that tracks.
Yeah.
I 100% believe it.
Absolutely. And I met her at Dark Force Fest. Like, I don't even know her that well, but that That reputation
It just
is,
tracks.
yeah, absolutely. Yes, that scans. Sounds right. But it was the thing that did strike me about her story was that, she wasn't super surprised because it was like she had already been growing up in from the sound of it, a family where like, if you know that your mom is a clairvoyant or so she says.
This is like normalized in your house.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Normalized. Yes, that's what I was driving at.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting contrast to hear her version of a ghost story.
It's
compared to
wholesome.
people, who didn't grow up around that.
Yeah, like aside from, her being scared from seeing this like random person, like it's pretty wholesome. Like
Yeah.
mom's just like, "Oh yeah, that's just grandpa. It's cool." And she's like, "Oh, my grandpa haunts me, but in the best way possible."
Right.
I love that. That's so cute and wholesome, and it kind of like, we think of ghost stories, we think horror, we think being scared, we think spooky. So it's kind of nice to hear like something on the opposite side of that because if the scary things happen, we almost have to believe the opposite could happen too. Like if ghosts exist, it's not always bad. Like,
Right.
I do firmly believe that energy doesn't get destroyed. I don't know where it goes, but I also have to believe like if I do believe ghosts exist, I have to believe that they exist in multitudes, not just in the way we are like seeing in media all the time.
Right.
So it's just really nice to hear like a wholesome story or a story that's like not at all what I was expecting.
Gotcha. Now seems like I agree with you, too, as well. And I like that you're pointing out that, it's nice to see some representation for ghosts.
Yeah, ghost representation.
Yeah. More than just villains in stories.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a good opportunity to drop one of my stories, if that's okay.
Oh heck yeah! Tell me.
Pretty short. But so similar, not entirely similar, but my grandfather was that I already mentioned. Grew up in rural Mississippi, was adopted, and was like a serious person, like very serious, but like was there was something, I don't know, strange about him, right? Like when I was growing up, he would come to visit and bring all the grandkids like dimes, like shiny, brand new, like he would go to the bank and get like rolls of dimes. And he did this for my mom when she was growing up too, to like, here's some dimes, go to the corner store, get candy, right? Like,
sure,
as you do.
Cute.
So that's what he would always do. He would bring all of us grandkids. He'd have rolls of dimes, give us all dimes, and we'd go to the gas station or the corner store and get candy.
That's adorable. I love that.
Yeah, grandpa shit, right?
Yeah, that's classic grandpa shit. Like, here's a quarter for being so freaking cute, my child. Like,
yes, exactly.
I mean, but in your case, rolls of dimes.
Rolls of dimes, right?
Yeah.
But so my grandfather also had like the weird story about like his friend that had died. My mom didn't tell me that until much later, but
sure.
So when I was a kid, I had warts on my fingers, like, and warts are caused by like a viral some sort of a viral
I struggled
reaction.
with those on my feet for a while.
Yeah. I had them on my fingers really bad, like my index fingers. So my mom was like,
so insecure.
Yeah, and they're terrible.
Sorry.
Like it's a terrible thing to have like on
they're
your...
terrible.
Yeah.
Anywhere on you, really.
Yes, agree. Thankfully it's like a lot easier to get rid of now, but I'm a kid in the 80s.
Right.
So my mom was like, "Oh, ask your grandfather. He'll get rid of them." And I was like, I'm a child. Okay. Well, an adult told me to do a thing. I will.
Yeah, you're going to do it.
Yeah. So, I tell him and he puts his hands over like my fingers and my hands. And he's like, don't think about it. Don't worry about it. This is going to heal up. It'll go away. And, that was that. And it did. It fucking healed. Like I didn't have warts ever again.
God. But that's insane.
Warts, the virus that causes the warts will fade with time and they will heal if you leave them alone. So I will add in that there is this but still it was a weird thing.
It's the timing was very weird.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's still a weird thing that my grandfather did, right? Okay. So fast forward to, I don't know my grandfather very well. He dies about a year and a half after my father died when I was very young. I was like 6, youngest of 4 kids. My grandfather moves in, lives with us for about a year, and then also dies. And throughout my life, anytime like dimes, I have found dimes. Any drawer I open, like, it's gonna have a fucking dime in it. Like, I was okay. So my partner Rose and I were living in Florida at the time. We go to the grocery store. I had told her the story about the dimes, right? Because I was like, dude, I keep finding dimes. Let me tell you why this is significant and why it's kind of weird. So she was aware of this. So we pull up to the grocery store. We get out, and there's a little island that we park next to that has dirt and when I say island, like it's like a little, like it's for a tree.
Like one of
right?
those little things. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So there's a tree growing in this. And I'm like, I look over at it, and I'm like, what the fuck? And she comes around from the other side of the car, and there is a dime sticking in the bark of the fucking tree.
What?
Like, I can't make this shit up. Like, and I'm like, are you fucking seeing this? Like, am I fucking crazy? Like, we are both staunch atheists, skeptics. Like,
Sure.
I'm like, what the fuck? And like, we've gone into stores and like, just randomly on a shelf, a dime. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, it's weird, right?
That's so odd.
Yeah, very odd, very strange. But I mean, like, that's been my whole life of like, well, I'm gonna move like dimes all over the place. But we'll save we'll save that for later. We'll listen to another story first. But
Sure.
yeah, dimes, weird.
That's so weird.
Yeah. All right. I guess I will pick the next one.
You kind of almost want to just be like, hey, Grandpa, what about some dollars?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
What about some
I'm just
actual
kidding.
dimes, yo? How about some paper dimes, yo? Like, yeah. Don't you ghosts know about inflation, you fucks? Like,
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying.
Get out of here with these fucking dimes. Yeah. I like where your head's at, AJ.
Yeah.
Because ghosts need to be informed. They're out of time, you know.
They
They don't
do.
fucking know anything. They're stupid.
They don't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is what this podcast for is ghost education about inflation so that they can stop leaving dimes for you
Right.
and leave some dollars.
Yeah. Yeah. Leave something with some substance, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you could try leaving some healthcare. What about that? Anyway, I don't think we have a ghost sufficient enough to, strong enough to do that yet. But
Oh my God.
okay,
If there is one, I will be a loyal believer.
yeah,
If you make that happen,
Sign
dear
me
ghosty out there.
yeah, sign me up. All right, so let's do Vanessa ratio strain.
Perfect. Sounds good.
So I will get that loaded up here.
Okay.
All right. So, just to give like quick backstory or whatever, kind of a short bio kind of a thing. Vanessa has been the drummer for industrial noise band Waste for several years. Started her own project, Ratio Strain, has played a couple festivals, is no stranger to Void Signal, yeah, I think that's it. I think I don't really have anything else to offer. I like her.
Yeah. I got to meet her once. She was very sweet.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. I'm ready.
Yeah,
Are you ready?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Oh, no. I was just going to say, yeah, she's just a super sweet person. She's lovely to talk to.
Yes. Agree.
Yeah.
All right. I'm ready if you are.
I'm ready.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Hey, this is Vanessa from Ratio Strain and the drummer from Waste. I'm going to tell you some super spooky stories about things that have happened to me. And you can hear my cat crying in the background. Check it out. Okay, hopefully I can tell this story without my cat, Meow, in the background screaming and crying because he's locked out of this room. So if you hear crying, it's not a ghost. It's just my loud ass cat, Mr. Meow. He's really freaking loud. Anyways, I guess I'll talk a bit about some of the occurrences I've had in my house now. There's definitely a ghost here in this house. I think it's probably a guy in his 20s. That's just the feeling that I get. Sometimes I'll be doing something and I feel like there's somebody watching me, especially when I'm in the shower. So this guy's clearly a pervert, or, you know, maybe not. I like a little watchy. But the biggest thing that happened was one night I was sleeping and I heard this crash in my office. I thought it was my annoying loud ass cat who's crying behind the door right now as we speak. And so I just went back to bed. And I woke up in the morning. I went into my office and I saw that I had this framed tool drum head on the wall with a nail in it. And I saw that the frame was on the ground, but it wasn't just on the ground. It was like, it looked like someone had ripped it off and flung it, because it wasn't just near the wall. It was a couple feet away from the wall. And the way I had put this thing into the wall, there's no way it could have gotten out. It was nailed into the wall. So naturally, I'm going, what the hell is going on? So I just clean up the mess, and then I put the drum head on the wall. Probably a week or two later, I'm in there doing something, and I hear this swishing noise. And I'm like, what the heck is that noise? And I look on my wall, and there is my tool drum head just rocking back and forth. Very quickly, too. And I just look at it, and I just go, really? You already broke it. Leave it alone. And it just stopped. It literally just stopped moving, and the ghost never touched it again. So clearly, hopefully I'm the boss with this ghost. Who knows? But like I said, he likes to come around. He's not here all the time. I don't get a sense he's here all the time. He'll come every once in a while, and usually I feel like he's in a corner or something. He's watching me. Nothing else in the house has really moved, but he's definitely here. I definitely think he's in his 20s. That's just, I don't know. That's just kind of the feeling that I get. I get the feeling it's kind of a ghost that is playful. I've lived in other houses that are haunted. I lived with my dad for a little while, and his house was really bad. That was not a friendly ghost. When I lived there, that ghost was very angry that I was there and would do things like slam my doors and the cupboards, or if I would close the doors, the door would just like slam open. And I constantly heard snoring noises in the room that I was in. I got this weird, heavy weighted feeling every time I was in that house. So I ended up not living in that house for longer than I think 2 or 3 months, because I was afraid to be alone in that house. There was something about that house that just felt evil. So I'm glad that I have at least a friendly ghost in the house that I'm in now. But yeah, that's my spooky story.
Oh, okay.
I mean, kind of chilling, actually. Like,
Doors thing freaks me out.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like that's some like crazy stuff you won't like quote unquote only see in the movies, you know, like like when like we start talking about people seeing ghosts, like, or not necessarily seeing ghosts moving things, but things just like moving and doing stuff on their own.
Yeah.
Like,
is that a thing you've ever experienced?
oh no, I've always been a relatively open-minded person.
Mm-hmm.
So like I thought it was so interesting. I think it was Jamie, or I can't remember if it was Jamie or Tom who said, oh, it was Tom. He was saying how his mother was more open-minded and things never happened to her, and his dad was like very skeptical, and like all this weird stuff would happen to him. So that made me think like maybe because I'm open-minded, things don't happen to me. They don't want to punish me or like show me they're real. I'm not the target quite yet.
Yeah. I I lost my faith like in my like 12, 13, something like that. But I have had an experience. So I will, and mind you, this happened probably just before I like was like, there's probably no God, I'm safe. Like, so just before I reached that realization, I was like maybe 11 or so, and we were living in this apartment complex, and the upstairs loft was my room, and I had a big, huge ass wooden desk that had like my computer on it, and on top of that were I thought it was I had like candles, toys, like bullshit, like fucking kid stuff, like plastic figures of like cool things that I liked, and other like random prepubescent boy bullshit. So I'm in the bathroom, and I'm in the shower, and I start to hear this like violent shaking, like like bam, 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 like just like getting like so fast. And I grab my towel, and it's my desk. Like you can tell because it's like you can hear all the shit like falling down, and like so I think like, is one of my siblings like doing something or what the fuck? Like, and nothing else is moving.
Right, because that makes the most sense, right?
Right. Yeah, again, Occam's razor, like, oh, it's a person. It's my shitty ass siblings. So, and Florida's not prone to earthquakes. I've experienced earthquakes since living in Nevada. This was not this. This was a single object in my space. So I round the corner and it stops, but all my shit is like fallen over and is like continuing to like topple and fall over. And it just like, I didn't know what to think. It's not that I was so like, spooky. It's not that I was like, even like aghast or like, oh my God, I was bewildered. I was like, how did that happen?
Yeah, because like you weren't like, oh yeah, ghost. It's like more like your brains are more wired to think like of logical explanation. So it's like, okay, is what happened?
Yeah, and so I just kind of like stood there in shock, just like, well, that was weird, and then just like went on about just fucking went on, and like I've not told that story to too many people because it's like fucking because my reaction was like, well, see you later, like fucking whatever, like I don't know what to do with that.
That honestly sounds like a reaction I would have too. Like if something just started falling, I'd be like, okay.
See,
right.
So maybe you're all like, oh, I'm open-minded, but you're open-minded to the point that like paranormal shit happens, and you're like, well, all right.
Maybe that's exactly it. I'm just oblivious to everything around me because I'm just like, oh yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that seems
this
normal.
is all fine.
Yeah. Oh.
Right.
Oh,
this happens in normal households.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I did do a lot of drugs. Probably just my memory.
Right.
Shit.
My brain's just probably permanently broken in a specific kind of way because of that.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
I don't know.
Relatable.
Right.
Also, shout out to Vanessa for being like, he watches her in the shower, which is weird. Like rapey ghosts. Yeah. Rapey ghosts like is a thing I don't like. I've had this conversation with Brian as well.
Rapey I don't like it in movies either. They creep me out.
Yeah.
Because if ghosts are real, again, I also have to believe that they are like again with the multitudes. Like, like man.
Yeah. I don't like thinking about that. Don't like that
nope.
at all.
Nope.
But yeah. All right. Well, I picked that one. So, do you want to pick the next one?
Yeah, but I want to go get more water real quick.
Oh, that sounds great because I want to go pee. Great. So, all right, cool. Okay. All right,
be back in a couple minutes.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, bye.
Hello again. Are you having a good time? Are you enjoying the content that you're hearing? Then please consider visiting voidsignal.net and signing up for the Void Signal Patreon. It's a great way to help support the creation of more Void Signal content, and I greatly appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of the episode and have a happy Halloween. Yeah.
That's smart.
Okay, thanks. All right, well...
You know what you're doing.
Let's not get crazy. Let's not get carried away. We kind of are just still making this up as we go along. It just looks like maybe I have an idea.
No, fake it till you make it.
Yep, that's right. All right. Welcome back. Let me grab a sip of my drinky. So you're drinking water tonight? Is that right?
Water with Crystal Light. Because, I don't know, sometimes I just need a little bit of flavor with my water. Like, I try really hard to stay as hydrated as I need to be, but that's just so boring.
Yes.
So just spice it up with a little bit of Crystal Light here and there. Sometimes we get one of those Mio flavoring things.
Mm-hmm.
Just change it up a little bit.
Yes, I, as a fellow Crystal Light user, although I buy the store brand most of the time, or like Weiler's Light is what we have out here, which is like a off brand. I mean, it's the same shit. Who cares? But yeah, I can appreciate, a little powder in my water. Give it some little splash of taste,
Yeah, we get the big pack from BJ's.
I don't know what BJ's is.
Oh,
Don't tell me.
it's like one of okay, cool. It's fine. We get it for we do the cheap people stuff. Like, the things that working class people do.
Right. Yes. Yeah, shout out working
It's
class.
like they sell it at warehouse places or something, or
Yes.
wholesale prices, or I'm not sure the word I'm looking for, but it's where they sell like family pack stuff for like wholesale prices.
Yes, we have a place like that out here called Winco.
Yeah.
That is a great place. Like, they don't take credit
Love
cards so that they can keep their costs down. So like all the
love
groceries are
that.
super cheap. Yeah.
Yeah, we have some staple items that we'll just get from there, and Crystal Light's one of them.
I'll probably cut this part because it has nothing to do with
That's
ghosts. But
The ghost of BJ's.
yeah, I mean, there is part of me though that's
Capitalism
like
is a
tempted
ghost.
to just like leave it in and just be like, yeah, we talked about fucking buying groceries
Crystal
for a
Light.
second. Crystal Light in our water. Yeah, fucking.
Yeah,
That's
because
exactly
we're
what I'm
wholesome
drinking
and
right
we
now.
love each other and we want to know what we're doing.
Right. God damn it. That's how friends work.
Yeah, we're making sure we're hydrating ourselves.
Yeah. But I'm also drinking Crystal Light. I got the iced tea with raspberry.
I love that one. Ours is the one I get is a 4-pack, or there's 4 different flavors.
Yeah.
It's like the raspberry lemonade, fruit punch, and wild strawberry.
I like the raspberry lemonade. Yeah. Yeah.
You know who else is Crystal Light boys?
Who?
Danny and Victor.
Oh, wow. We're all Crystal Light buddies.
Oh yeah, we stayed with them this past weekend, and they had Crystal Light right in the fridge, and I was like, guys, I love you so much. I could just stay here forever.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds splendid. Wonderful. I'm glad that we all keep hydrated with just a little bit
With a
of
little
flavor.
interesting stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I'm leaving this in. I don't give a shit. Like, people can take a break from fucking ghost stories. Let and just listen to water.
This
talk.
is your palate cleanser.
Right, yeah. All right, so let's get back into it. I picked Vanessa. So why don't you pick our next one?
Sure. I don't want to embarrass myself, so I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, but is it Morgue VVitch or Morgue VVitch?
It's Morgue VVitch.
Okay,
I mean,
it's just stylized.
Yes, I say witch.
Okay.
If somebody...
Okay.
Even if Tara is wonderful.
Morgue VVitch, I'm so sorry if I pronounced your name wrong.
Yeah, Tara is wonderful
Please.
and sweet, but even if she were like, I prefer Morgue VVitch, I'd be like, I'm not gonna say that. Sorry. It's. I mean, I love her, but no, I will say witch. I'm the host. I'll do whatever I want.
Yeah, let's do
All right.
hers.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good.
Host rules.
All right. Good choice. Okay. All right. I'm ready. Are you?
I just feel like something really good is going to come out of someone whose name is Morgue VVitch. You know what I mean?
Yes. My expectations are not high, but they're elevated.
They're respectfully elevated.
Yes. Respectfully. Thank you. Okay. I am ready if you are.
Ready.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Hello, my name is Tara. Some may know me as Morgue VVitch. This is my story. It first began in the year 2007 when I moved back to Kansas City and in with my mother after the birth of my daughter. It was a very rough time for me and I really needed some extra support. My mother had bought my great-grandfather's house after he moved into an assisted living home. She held on to some of his belongings, all of his collections and memorabilia from his time working for the railroad. The basement was filled with miniatures, photography, vintage lanterns, antique furniture, maps, a bunch of museum-quality items he collected throughout his years, and an old Ouija board from the very early 1900s. This was my favorite. After his passing, at the age of 97, we donated these items to local museums. I would often go into the basement prior just to look at everything and admire these pieces of history. While down there, it was hard not to ignore this feeling that I wasn't alone. I did have 2 cats at the time, Inky and Smudge, who went down there often, so I just played it off as it being one of them down there with me. But over time, this feeling was experienced by my 2 older children, as well as my dog Haley, a large breed Catahoula leopard dog, who refused to go into the basement. Still, I just blew it off as if it were nothing, just my strange dog being strange. Then one day, my oldest son comes running up the stairs, absolutely terrified, claiming he saw something towards the back of the basement. A figure perched on a table, human, but almost animalistic, made of black static with red glowing eyes. I wasn't sure what to think. Maybe it was his imagination, or maybe it was one of the cats. I don't know. Regardless, I went down there and I told whatever it was to leave my kids alone. I'm unsure how much time had passed before I soon had contact with this dark creature. It was around 6 a.m. when I woke. I opened my eyes, and there it was, sitting on top of me. This human-like figure made of black static with piercing red eyes, its hands around my neck, staring down at me. I couldn't move, I couldn't breathe. All I could feel was paralyzing fear. Eventually, it let up, and I screamed. I jumped out of bed, and I ran into the living room. Some might say what I experienced was sleep paralysis, and I just had an encounter with a sleep paralysis demon. There are stories from many others over time with similar encounters describing a very similar being. Whatever it was, I didn't see it again. Not in that house. Soon after, we moved into our house we currently live in today. I haven't seen the creature here, but I'm pretty sure it followed. There's a spot at the end of the hall where there's a linen closet, and that's where I feel it most. Right next to my daughter's bedroom. She also mentioned a few times she felt a presence in her closet. So I went in there and I told it to leave her alone, to leave her room, and to not mess with my kids. It was our 3rd night at this house. Everyone had gone to bed. And while I was still awake, laying there, a very distinct whisper in my ear called my name. I thought it was my daughter at first, but she wasn't in the room. My door was closed and she was sound asleep in her bed. Sometime after, while laying in bed on my side, I felt something behind me, and it let out this low, guttural growl. At this point, I wasn't even scared anymore. I was just pissed off that whatever was there was fucking with me. So I addressed it out loud that I wasn't afraid anymore. And it hasn't bothered me since. I still think it's here, but it knows I'm not afraid, and it knows it can't mess with me anymore. I've made sure of that. If you're at all familiar with my music, you may have heard my song War. And in that song, there is a part that goes, "Red eyes send shivers down my spine. Black static, electric, now I'm paralyzed." Now you know the meaning of the song. At least part of it.
Okay.
Wow. That's really cool. We kind of get insight into like a meaning of some like part of her song.
Yes.
Like that's really cool that she took that experience and like channeled it creatively.
Yes, agree. I also just have to say that I really appreciate the theatricality of it.
Did she add in a sound effect?
Yes. Yes.
Oh my god, that was so fun.
Yeah.
I just like stopped frozen for a second. Like, did she just?
Yeah, I
love it.
I wasn't ready for it.
I wasn't either.
Yeah. So yeah, shout out. Thank you.
Mhm.
For
Yeah, that was really cute.
yes, wonderful. And I do like I was curious to hear like if the experiences that people had influenced anything that they had put out creatively. Jamie mentioned that I asked him to do that.
Okay.
So it was yeah, thank you for sharing. It was
That was a little terrifying.
Yeah.
Sleep paralysis sounds, oh my god,
yeah.
terrifying.
Yeah, sounds like a thing I would not be into.
Mm-mm. Not a Baja Blast.
Right. No,
Not a Baja Blast at all.
regardless of how sexually attractive my sleep paralysis demon might be, it still seems like a thing I wouldn't be into. So,
Right.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, good choice. I mean, you were right. Like you were like, "Oh, Morgue VVitch is going to be a good story," and it was.
Oh, I wanted to say this about Vanessa's too, but I also like how like her and Vanessa were just like, it's the animal. No, it's the animal. It's
Yeah.
probably just the animal.
Yeah.
Again, with the trying to find the logical solution.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Do you have any have you had any experiences similar to anything that we've heard so far?
Yes and well, no. My brother had a weird experience. So my father passed away when we were super young. I was 19. My brother was 15. The funeral was on this poor kid's sweet 16. So, I don't know if like there's some meaning behind the funeral being on the birthday that like would make a spirit attached to him more or something. I don't know. I'm not good at that kind of thing. I'm more of a cursed objects fan. I don't know what could have possibly happened, but my dad lived with my grandma. Like our family, well, my dad's side of the family, we're all very like very, very close. So my dad lived with my grandma. His room was directly above the living room. And it was the right hand side. Like if you're just like looking forward at the room, right hand side top corner had a vent in it. And right underneath that area, there was a couch that me and my brother would sleep in anytime we stayed at grandma's house. My brother insisted for like the longest time that he would see a little like orb floating in and around that area.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was like my dad's room.
Right.
So, makes sense. He felt like it was our dad. But like it's our dad's room. Maybe it's like, oh, I'm really sad that he's gone. We had the funeral on my birthday. Like maybe this is my dad coming to say it's okay,
Sure.
Or maybe spirits are orbs. Who knows?
Right.
But it was just really crazy when he told me about that, and I was just like, oh boy. And like, see, nothing like that's ever happened to me, and I'm a little jealous.
Right.
Like something soft like that. Like I love good soft magic.
Sure.
Like I want some soft magic to happen to me.
Right. I was going to try and put a question to you about ascribing meaning to events and experiences like this, but and it's not that I'm disinterested in your answer as to why I'm not going to ask. I just am. I'm not sure how much that matters contextually at the moment.
Sure.
But I did want to share sort of a similar kind of an experience. So, not related to my grandfather this time. But my and I got the story secondhand because this is not a story my brother would ever tell me, or tell anybody really. Honestly, he's just not that. He's not that kind of person.
Sure.
But my sister, my youngest sister, not youngest sister. She's like the youngest, like I was the youngest child, but like of my two sisters, she is the youngest. Does that make fucking sense?
That makes sense.
Okay, thank you. Man, having a
I got
co-host is great. Just to be like, hey, am I fucking like
Just
being
the solid
stupid?
validation real quick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So she told me that, you know, after my father passed, that my brother was sleeping on the other side of the house by himself. His room was over there. And after my father passed, he told my mom that he thought he was going crazy because, he would hear my father talking to him at night as he was like on the verge of falling asleep, and telling him not to worry, things would be okay, and like, you know, things were going to work out and everything would be fine, and so on. I didn't hear about this until much, much later, like into my teens, when my sister told me that he'd had this conversation with my mom, and that she was the one who, you know, had told her. And, you know, it's not my experience, so I can't really comment on it. But
Sure.
like, you know, I don't know, like I can understand wanting to like processing grief makes you do strange things and makes you
it
feel
really
strange.
does.
So
Yeah.
I can
And
understand. Go ahead.
the grief comes in waves too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so it's just like you keep getting these, like you just start acting strange, like randomly one day. You think you're good, and then you're like, oh, it's hitting, and then you just start doing weird, and like rinse and repeat until you like finally like really heal.
Mm-hmm.
So like that repeated thing, like the way memory works and all with reinforcing and all that, like,
Yeah.
you know, that's a really intense feeling to feel. And I mean, who knows? Maybe it was brains being brains. Maybe it was actually something scary, or like not necessarily scary in a bad way. Like Nyxx had the cutest little story, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like maybe,
Yes.
yeah.
I do. I get you. But it's like, it does kind of tie back around to like the question that I was going to put to you of like ascribing meaning to something that we experience that I don't know, is better explained another way, or maybe not better, but like, I don't know what I'm trying to drive at here. I don't know if you're like picking up what I'm putting down. Probably not. It doesn't matter. Let's move on.
It does matter. Everything you do matters. First off.
Oh.
First and foremost, broadcast.
All right. Thanks.
You
Angel.
matter.
Thank you.
But we can always revisit that question, and like you can DM it to me sometime when you're thinking about it one day if you want, and I'll go,
Well, it also kind of ties into like, I'm also kind of trying to be vague, and I'm not good at that.
Sure.
I'm not good at subtle.
That's okay. That's okay. When you figure it out, you DM it to me, and I will give you the best possible answer I can think of.
Okay, great. All right. Well, we'll move on. And what you just picked Morgue VVitch, so I
did.
Let's go with my homie Samtar. So I've known. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, so I discovered Sam and his music because of I got really into Processor, which is Swedish industrial electronic, I don't know what. I love it.
Nice.
But I was really into it. He collaborated on a project called Modesty Beast, where he went on to a website called Fiverr and just hired gig vocalists to just send him over some vocals. One of the people that he happened to hire was Sam. And so that's how I discovered Sam and his music, and discovered that Sam's own music as Samtar is also fucking great, and that Sam is wonderful.
Big surprise.
Yeah,
you have wonderful taste in music, first off.
Oh,
so like big surprise.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. But it's been such a pleasure to like get to know Sam and like you know, see him like go play his first gig and shit. I love him. He's got a great voice, very talented. Anyway, I asked him for a ghost story, and I guess I'm ready for it if you are.
Oh, heck yeah. Let's go.
All right.
I've got it loaded.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Very short story. So basically, I was staying at my parents' house. My mom was out of town, and I need you to remember that because it's a very important part of the story. But my dad was still at the house, and in the middle of the night, we're both sleeping. I woke up to go pee, and on my way back from the bathroom, I heard, Sam, come here. And it was a woman's voice. And I thought it was my mom, and I was just like, oh, whatever she wants can wait till morning. So I just kind of wrote it off and went back to bed. Now, if you remember, 15, 20 seconds ago, my mom was out of town. So I just wrote all of this off. I was very tired, didn't think about anything. The next morning, still not thinking about this occurrence whatsoever. My dad and I are eating breakfast. And he, out of the blue, just says, did you have a woman over last night? To which my brain goes, what? And like I don't know, for some reason it set me off, and I immediately started to recall what happened. And I said, no, why? And he said, well, I thought I heard you talking to a woman last night. And I just said no. And this story still honestly scares the shit out of me, because there's a lot of things wrong with it in my head. I've never heard voices. I've never heard disembodied voices. I've never woken up and dreamt while I've never like sleepwalked. I've never had any of that shit. And I still remember vividly in my head as a sober 20-year-old walking past, and on my left side, the side that doesn't have their bedroom, my parents' bedroom was on the right side, and I remember vividly on the left side hearing my name called twice and come here, come here. How my brain knew to write that off as just like it can wait till morning, I don't know, but I'm happy it did, because I definitely would not have gone back to sleep. And
okay, it just ends because
okay.
Sam. But yeah, creepy.
Very creepy.
I mean, I know
Mom was out of town. What is this?
Yeah, and I know Sam. We've talked and hung out a lot. Not the kind of person to make up some bullshit.
Sure.
Sure. I feel like the delivery of his story is convincing enough. Like you said with Jamie, I believe Sam. When he says this,
yeah. Just the whole being tired and because I've absolutely done that too, where I'm waking up in the middle of the night because I have to use the bathroom or whatever, and I'm in that weird little half tired, half awake. So, I'm only awake enough to not bump into things or fall down and hurt myself or whatever. Yes. So completely dismissing something like that as just being tight, totally reasonable, absolutely. But then Dad comes along and he's like, "Hey, did you have a woman over last night?"
Yeah, right.
What?
Yeah.
What do you mean, Dad? After hearing that voice?
Yeah.
Oh especially my God, I would have done the same thing.
Yeah, same.
Just said no.
Yeah, and especially a thing that you dismissed, that you were that didn't happen.
That didn't happen. I'm still asleep.
Yeah, and then for somebody else to be like, "Hey," and I'm hooked on the idea of that moment of the chills.
Somebody else.
The chills run over. Yeah, of the chills running over you of oh fuck, it wasn't just me. I wasn't just being a fucking idiot or
I wasn't just tired.
Things. Yeah.
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 I'm not bored with life and making this up to seem interesting. No, somebody else just acknowledged this.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Holy crap.
Yeah. Excellent. Wonderful. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks, Sam.
Love you, buddy. And thank you to everybody who has contributed so far. These have been wonderful. This has been a blast.
Yeah. These are some great stories. I mean, they're not they're scary. They're very scary, but it's been great to like listen to all these stories. I didn't want to be like, oh, these are great stories. Perfect. 12 out of 10. Like, no, they're actually kind of terrifying.
Yeah. They've been, it's been fun to listen to.
For sure.
All right. So we've got, 2 left. What would you like next?
Let's do Luna's.
Luna. All right. I am ready if you are. Oh, let me go a quick bio kind of a thing.
Yes.
Luna is, and I'm not going to give too much, but Luna is a person who started following the podcast. I don't know why. But you know, I mean, like, I mean, it's like, well, I just mean, like, you know, I don't know where they came from. I don't ever know where anybody comes from. So, like,
okay,
you know, how'd you find it? And they'll be like, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, cool.
I'll give you one pass this time.
Thank you. I was actually not trying to be self-deprecating this time, though I know it is a thing I am known for. But yeah, so I don't know how she found us, but she struck me as an interesting person, doing interesting things, into interesting things, and
love it.
When she did speak and write things on social media, it was thoughtful, and I was like, okay, this is a person to. So had her on for an episode of Void Signal Strangers, which you can listen to on the Void Signal Patreon for as little as $2. Anyway.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing pricing in this capitalist hellscape. Love it.
I mean, absolutely affordable.
Best $2 we'll ever spend.
Totally. 100% agree. But so interviewed her for the Stranger series, and yeah, she contributed a ghost story. I guess that is
perfect.
I guess that's good enough. All right.
Hell yeah.
Ready?
Ready.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
I have a lifetime's worth of ghost stories, starting from when I was 2 and would see my great-grandfather, who I'd never met or even seen a photo of, smiling at me in my room. I've seen them, felt them, and at times even spoken to them. And while you'd think by now I'd be used to it, it still scares the shit out of me every time, no matter how benign the encounter. But sometimes I'll have an experience where that fear is definitely justified, and this is one of them. I spend a lot of time in and out of doctors' offices and hospitals due to chronic illness. On this day, I had a post-op appointment on the 3rd floor. Nice and quiet, all offices, little to no chance of running into anything unpleasant up there, like I sometimes do in the rest of the hospital. My partner and I got into the elevator, and I pushed the number 3 button. The elevator made all the usual noises for the usual amount of time. The LCD display and the automated voice stated we were on the 3rd floor. So when the doors opened, I walked right out and in the direction of my doctor's office. I'd only taken a few steps before I realized that something was very wrong. The layout of the floor was similar to what I was used to, but it wasn't quite the same. But the really disconcerting thing was the wall of noise. It was like being stuck inside of a ventilator, a constant whooshing noise mixed with so many overlapping voices I couldn't pick any one out well enough to understand what was being said. There were crying sounds, even some yelling sounds, half as if in pain and the other half in frustration. It drowned out every other noise you might expect to hear on a hospital floor, but as I looked around, I realized that none of the other people there were speaking or making a noise. Their lips were still. Most of them looked exhausted or deep in thought. The voices, cries, whatever they were, seemed to be coming from the patients, or at least I assume that's what they were because they were mostly in hospital gowns or pajamas. Some hovered around the tired people in the chairs, waving their arms and yelling as if they couldn't understand why they were being ignored. Others simply wandered, confused, or leaned against walls talking to themselves and weeping. 3 things occurred to me. First, it was clear by the lack of reaction from anyone else on the floor that I was the only one seeing this. Second, I got the distinct impression that only some of these patients were actually dead. The rest of them seemed to be in some kind of out-of-body state, is the best way that I can describe it. And third, I somehow knew that it would be extremely bad if any of them, dead or not, realized that I could see or hear them. Some of you are probably thinking right now, I would simply get back onto the elevator, But in that moment, I had no concept of backtracking or anything like it. I couldn't even remember that such a thing existed. I was in some sort of dissociative state, losing my sense of where I was or what was going on, and all I had in my head was the urge to just keep moving forward, past the spirits, towards the corridor where my doctor's office was supposed to be. My memory gets fuzzier here, but I remember feeling like there was a constant wave of people walking quickly past me, like being swept up in a crowd at a busy theme park. Although thinking back, I don't actually remember there being anyone else there. But that voice in the back of my head kept repeating itself like a drumbeat. Forward, forward. I crossed under a sign that I didn't recognize, and my brain acknowledged this fact somehow enough to hesitate despite my compulsion to keep walking. And at this point, I felt my partner grab my arm and pull me backwards. It felt like waking up from 100 years' worth of sleep as we made our way back to the elevator. The patients all now gone, the noise that was overwhelming me so completely just moments ago reduced to faint echoes. He asked me why I kept walking, because he'd been calling me back the whole time, and didn't I hear him? I didn't. I didn't hear a damn thing even resembling a familiar voice the entire time. It turns out that while the elevator told us it had stopped on floor 3, it had actually stopped on the second floor. I confirmed with him that we had pressed the right buttons, that we'd both seen and heard the third floor announcement, and he said, yes, we had. The second floor, by the way, in this hospital is the ICU. And to this day, I still find myself trying to figure out exactly what happened. Was it some kind of glitch or malfunction with the elevator? Or did something recognize that I'd be able to see it and sense it and bring me there on purpose? And for what purpose? What would have happened if I'd been there alone, or if my partner hadn't been able to catch up with me and I kept walking deeper into the unit? I'm not sure I want to know the answer.
Okay.
Oh, that was spooky. These are also spooky.
Yeah, that was pretty legit. Gave me some certifiable heebie-jeebies, I believe.
Certifiable heebie-jeebies is definitely what they're legally referred to. I know this for a fact.
Yeah. I'm glad you're familiar enough with heebie-jeeb law.
Yeah.
To
very passionate about it, actually.
But no, chilling.
Yeah. The whole, lifetime of seeing them is just, that's a lot. Give this poor person a break. Oh my god, that's terrifying. And, I like how she specifically brought up, you'd think I'd be used to this, but I'm just not. Yeah, of course, it's scary. You're not expecting these things, and they just happen out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
When...
And,
Mm-hmm.
No, go ahead.
No, go on. I interrupted you.
I was going to change the topic, so you go ahead.
I was just going to add it, and nonetheless, having the experience of oh yeah, ICU ghost hole almost swallowed me.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck? No.
Oh
ugh,
my god.
gross.
Yeah, no, ugh.
Yeah. Grody.
How she mentioned the chronic illness wards,
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god. Have you ever been in any type of cancer ward or any type of chronic illness, real bad illness ward or anything like that?
No, have you?
They are so everybody does what they can, but they're so bleak. Yeah. Oh, they're so bleak. A friend of mine in her early 20s, she had cancer. So she's great now. She's living her best life now. She's thriving. So she beat it. She's good. But
good to hear.
I would go to right. Absolutely love that for her. But I would visit her at the hospital and just her room was cute and decorated. So, we walk into her room. It's all great. But you go out and you're navigating this whole ward and it's just so bleak and it feels uncomfortable because you know what's going on down there, right? You just know cancer is a big scary thing. And even going back a little bit further, we have so many ghost stories from tuberculosis wards,
right?
Big hospitals, they the when she started describing the walls of noise of people yelling in pain and there's just no one there making noise, but she's hearing this noise and stuff. I've heard that being a thing in these types of places. I used to really like going to abandoned wards. There was one
Why?
in like an hour because it's fun. I don't know.
Okay.
I really liked macabre art for a while, and I was doing kind of like that kind of photography. So I was like, let's check out these abandoned wards. They probably got weird things going on in there that I could like do. And like, I actually got some really cool shots and was able to like do some photo manipulation and make some weird shit. But anywho, yeah, like they're just so creepy.
Yeah.
Just I've never. Okay, I'm sure if I went in the dark, I would have probably had an experience, but I was not in it.
Yeah.
At
See,
that time.
I was
I
about
only went during the day.
Yeah, I was about to call you out and be
Sunlight
like,
only.
you're all like, well, I'm open-minded. And I went to, a place where, I wouldn't want to go at night, right? Like no
I
thanks.
was super young. In my defense, I
Okay.
was like
so there's
18,
some
19.
stupidity involved.
Right. So
Right.
there's some stupidity involved, and there's also like, I don't know, like I just wasn't the person I am now when I was 18.
Sure.
I was a little jerk.
All right.
Like, I don't know. I was like just a completely different person, so I was just like, no, I'm not gonna risk it. I'm not gonna risk it. Daylight only, just in case the ghosts are real. I like my life.
Gotcha. Okay, fair enough. So maybe not as stupid as I originally assumed.
No,
'cause
I was definitely stupid, but maybe in different ways.
Okay. Yeah, I was quite stupid at that age as well. So yeah.
For sure. Who wasn't?
Yeah.
I'm coming to learn in my adulthood, like we were all just dumb.
Yes.
All of us.
Very like early 20s. Like I was very much still a baby. Like that's how I feel. Is that like I was still very young.
Yeah.
I felt underdeveloped.
My 30s now feel like what my 20s should have been.
Yes, agree.
Like what I'm doing right now, I feel like I should have done when I was 22.
Right.
But it's okay. I feel fine with the fact that I'm 32 and doing these things. Like I've made peace with that. But like, 30s are the new 20s almost.
That's good to know. I just turned 40. I'm about to turn 41 in a few months.
See, you're having your 30s now.
Yeah, I'm having my 30s now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's great. But no, I agree. Like my 30s are when I felt like I finally became an adult. Anyway, we're having a fucking Halloween special. Sorry. But
You
yes.
can just cut it out.
No, it's fine. Like but I totally get what you mean as far as like human pain, human suffering. Like like not only are you confronting in a hospital in a cancer ward as an example, not only are you confronting the emotions of people who are approaching the end of their life, are being having it robbed from them, right? Like it is being stolen away by a thing that we can't do anything about. They can't do anything about.
It's just genetic. Like
just
some genetic mutation that you have that you now just have to deal with.
Yeah,
like that's devastating.
Yes. Yeah. Just the universe decided to fuck you in particular. So not only the emotions of the person going through it who is approaching this thing that is big and scary and ominous, but like families being devastated, like having to like cry their eyes out and facing financial ruin and all of the emotions that are coming out in that, like the idea of and again, I don't believe, but the idea of being a person who's sensitive to something like that, like I would hate to go in a hospital. Absolutely not.
Yeah. I'd be interested to know what years she was at the chronic illness ward too, just because like I know that like in the past 10 years or so, like cancer treatment, chemo has gotten like a lot better. But like even just like 10 years ago, people probably suffered way more. You know what I mean? Just because like science just wasn't there yet.
Sure.
So I'd be kind of interested in seeing the history of like the actual building too, to kind of go with the stories as well. Like, I just think that would be really interesting too. I love this kind of stuff, but no, I don't want to know. It's creepy. It's so like, so much has happened there and so many people have suffered there that I don't want to, that I would cry if something like that happened to me. Like the walls of noise that she heard, like that just sounded like, nope.
Yep.
Nope,
that was
I'm good. Nope.
yeah, that's some like Clive Barker shit. That's like no.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've got one ghost story
final
left. And then I will give my like final little story kind of a thing. But yeah,
Cool.
are you ready for this next one?
I'm ready.
All right. So our last story comes from John from Seraphim System. This is not a person that I knew. They have not been on Void Signal. This was somebody who submitted a story thanks to the assistant of my boy Brian Blacknoise. He put out a call for stories and helped get me some more, and this was one of them. So
Awesome.
Yeah,
I'm interested to see what his following kind of brought over to the Void Signal. I'm interested for this because, his aesthetic is kind of like super like dark, mystery, creepy. So some of his fans absolutely have a good ghost story.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And admittedly, I wasn't familiar with his music until I got the email from him of like, hey, I'm from fucking Seraphim System. And I'm like, all right.
Sure.
And then it was because, the world is enormous. I don't mean that, I don't mean that dismissively to anybody. It's just that the world is fucking huge. And so I just hadn't checked it out. And that was something that I was like, that after checking it out and listening to it, I was like, okay, this is a person I would love to hear a ghost story from. So, I'm excited to hear this.
Me too.
All right. Are you ready?
Ready.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
What is going on? This is John from Seraphim System, and I have a little paranormal, spooky ghost story, something out of the occult and the unknown, something from the other side for you. So it started back when I was around 15 years old. I'd always been interested in the paranormal and ghosts and spirits and things of that nature since I was a little kid, but when I was a teenager and I really got into my full-fledged goth stage, that was when I really started to act on it. So I started getting into Ouija and tarot cards and doing seances with my dorky little friends, and we just tried any way we could to contact the other side. So I had this knee-high pair of Demonia boots, as most goth kids did at the time, and the box that the boots came in, I took the lid of that box, flipped it over, cut it out, and I had made myself a Ouija board, and I was super proud of it. And then I made the planchette by getting a CD jewel case and cutting it out, cutting the plastic in a triangle shape. So now I have my Ouija board and my planchette, and I was like, okay, I'm going to use my Ouija board now. So one night I'm sitting on one side of my bed facing the wall, and I've got my radio turned on, kind of quietly, and then I have this neon halogen guitar lamp that's turned on to give light to the room. And so I sit down and I've got my self-made Ouija board, and I put my hands on the planchette and I start asking questions. Have I made contact with someone? Am I speaking to anyone? Do you have a name? And I'm doing this for a while and I'm not really getting a response. So I keep messing with it a little while longer, and then I say, can you show me a sign of your presence? Can you show me a sign that you're here, in this room with me? And not very long after that, I hear these 3 distinct tap, tap, tap on the other side of the bed, like someone's taking their fingernail and flicking the wooden bed frame. So I take the board, I slide it off my lap, put it to the side, and I stand up and look over the other side of my bed. I don't know for what, but I'm just looking over to the other side of the bed to see where those taps came from. And as I'm doing that, that halogen neon guitar lamp that I have just blows out. Just with a loud pop, it just shorts out and just blows out right there. So I'm standing there in my now completely dark room, and the radio that I have on, when I turn over to look at my guitar lamp, the radio that I have on immediately turns up. And it's not like a dial or anything. It was one of those ones that have a push the button for volume up, push the button for volume down. Well, it's at 3, and it starts rapidly climbing, like someone's standing there and holding the volume up button. And so at this point, I'm legitimately terrified. So I run over, I slam my finger on the power button, it shuts off, and now I'm standing in the complete darkness, complete silence, and just absolutely petrified. So I run over, I flick the overhead light on, go back over to the Ouija board, open the closet, put the Ouija board in the closet, try to go to bed and forget about what had just happened, and just pretend like everything was okay. And everything goes fine, but the next night, I remember I'm in the bathroom, I'm brushing my teeth, about ready to go to bed, and as I'm leaving the bathroom and walking into my room, I cross the threshold, and it is just this cold that, like, gets into your bones and makes your bones cold. I mean, it is freezing cold in my room. And this is August. This is like 80, 85 degrees outside, but my room is like a refrigerator. I mean, it is freezing cold. So I'm going back into the closet now to try and find like a quilt or like a comforter or a blanket or something just to deal with how cold this room is. I wake up in the middle of the night that night sweating because my room is not cold anymore because it's the middle of August. And I take the comforter off of me and I go back to sleep. And on this goes for several months. We moved out of that trailer a couple of months after that when I was turning 16 years old. We moved into a new house, and thankfully nothing's ever happened since. The rational part of my brain's like, well, maybe it was a power surge, but just the timing of when all of that occurred and then the freezing cold, which is indicative of some type of haunting in like paranormal lore. That cold that happened afterwards off and on, I just don't know what to think. But luckily nothing's ever happened since, so I guess whatever it was stayed in that little trailer. Somebody bought the trailer after we moved out of it, so congratulations, they got a haunted trailer now. Thanks to me.
Okay.
I love how he ended that one.
Yes.
I would be so interested to know, like, what that person who bought the trailer, like, had, if they had any experiences or anything like that.
Me too. That's a thing I'd love to know. That would be interesting.
That'd be so interesting.
Especially going in blind of like, hey, hey, you don't know me. Have you ever had anything weird happen here? Like, you know, that would be interesting. And again, they would get to experience that god awful moment of like, why are they asking? Like, how do they know?
Right.
Like, who wants to experience that? Right? Like, that sounds awful.
No, right? Nobody. Yeah. Again, with the cold, 85 degrees out and it's cold. What?
Yeah. And I greatly appreciate acknowledging that, like, it's part of the mythos, right? It checks, goes along with it.
Yeah, it tracks.
Yeah, thank you. Great, interesting story. You know,
I love his DIY Ouija board too.
Yeah, and I appreciate that you were a person, like, this is a thing you sought, like you were out to get it, to find it, and had an experience, really cool. And then was like, hey, JK,
I'm good.
Nah, changed my mind on this one. Yep,
you
cancel
did it
clear.
Once you had the experience. We're good.
Yeah, cancel clear. We're done. Wow. Backing up. Yep. So, any final thoughts on this story at all?
No, that was a great story. I love that DIY Ouija board. Like, that is some, like, resilience right there. That's, like, some, like, where there's a will away mentality that I really appreciate in people. I loved that. Yeah, again, with the random things just happening, too. Like, the volume on the speaker, or, like, just the volume, like, going all the way up. Like, just that random stuff. Like, nobody's clearly there touching it. Yeah. You know, but it's happening.
Right. And I've had light bulbs spontaneously blow out in a room that you're in. It's scary. Yeah. It's unsettling. Like, even though you're just like, the fucking bulb just blew out. But like,
this happens with light bulbs sometimes.
Yeah.
But also,
it's there's that moment of like, the light just went out and you're suddenly alone in the dark, and like, it suddenly feels very quiet. I mean, I've had that happen.
We've all got creative
experience.
Brains.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very. Speaking of creative brains, what a great segue, AJ. So I wanted to wrap this up by just sort of this is a little long-winded, so I'll try and be brief. But huh?
No, I just laughed. That's all.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you were gonna say something.
No.
So I took a storytelling class in college. As you might guess, I was quite good at it. I told a story about
that tracks.
Thank you. I told a story about Spring-Heeled Jack, which was something that like weirded me out when I was a kid. That's a story for a different show.
Sure.
But at the end of the semester, everybody got to vote on who they'd like to tell one last story at a Turtles All the Way Down festival that my professor was going to put on in the university library. I was voted. I got to go. I got to go do one. So it was
surprising nobody.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I was very proud. I was elated. So I told a scary story and I told a funny story, and people were like, "Oh, the scary story was so good." The one about Spring-Heeled Jack. And I was like, "Okay, well." So I'm planning to go. My professor's like, "What's the name of the story you're going to tell?" So I can put it on the flyer. And I was like, growing up in the supernatural South. And it's kind of the stories that I've been telling you, like, oh, my grandfather, my brother experienced this, told the story about the dimes. So I had it all planned out in my head of like, okay, I'm going to go tell the story about the things I've experienced and the things my relatives have experienced. So I go, we pull up into the parking lot, and there's a fucking dime in the parking lot when I get out because,
oh my God,
of course there fucking is, right? So I go in.
Yeah, just because.
Just fucking because. So, but I go in, I tell my story, I tell all the stories, and then at the end I'm like, yeah, but the moral of all of these stories and the confession that I have to make to all of you, everybody who was present, is that I don't believe any of these. I don't. I think that, in the case of my brother, he hears a voice that tells him what he needs to hear when he needs to hear it. And maybe it's callous of me to say, but that strikes me as convenient. Okay. Like, if we're going to be honest about it, that's an element that we have to consider, is that you're looking for reassurance. And so you find it.
Sure. Yeah.
And in the case of, my grandfather's dimes, confirmation bias. Maybe I encounter quarters, nickels, pennies, whatever, in just as much abundance, but they don't reaffirm what I'm already looking for. So I downplay them, or I don't pay attention, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And, I give this explanation of like, I don't believe any of these things. And the reason that I don't, and the reason that I think that, and I explain that I want people to be the things that you really want to be true, are the things that you have to be the most skeptical of and the most critical of, because those are the things that you would be willing to bend the rules of reality to make true.
Right.
I would love for the case to be that my father gave this sage wisdom to my brother when he needed it. That would be a wonderful thing to believe. Right. But, I can't make it to that point. And I have to be skeptical of it because, again, I would like for that to be true. So, I give this story. Everybody claps. A professor of mine from another class who had attended this, was telling his story next, and like shook my hand and was like, that was awesome. That was great. I felt 1,000 feet tall. I felt huge. I, killed it. And I still mostly stand by like that stance. I mean, I do. I stand by that stance. Sure. But I did find a dime in the parking lot on the way out. Also, just,
Of course you did.
Just because. And I was like, I'm like looking around, like, I'm like, did somebody drop other change?
Those thoughts.
Yeah. I was like, did somebody drop other change?
No, I'm here.
Yeah. It's like, no, bro, dime. Like, yeah. But yeah, I don't know. And even now, like, that still happens every now and again. Like, oh, a fucking dime. What are the odds? And I mean, like, probably good. Yeah. It's the smallest coin in U.S. currency. So let's keep that in mind too. But I don't know. Whatever.
No, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Okay. All right. Well, that was it. That was
fun. I really liked all those stories.
Good. Me too.
That was creepy. I can't wait to go to sleep tonight.
Yeah, me too. Oh, I can't wait to be alone in the dark with my thoughts.
I know. Yeah, right. After all that.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. But
but they have to live with it. So like,
right.
I'm going to have nightmares for a night. They have to live with all this stuff. Like, I'm clearly getting the better end of the deal here.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have to like recall these things from memory, so it's fine.
Right. Or experience them.
Yeah, I never had to live it, so
Right.
oh, sucks. Sorry. Shit out of luck. But yeah, thank you to everybody who submitted stories. I'm very grateful. I would love to do this again. I would love to do another Halloween special.
You should.
Thank you. I'm
make it a yearly thing.
I think so. I feel really good about how this turned out. So
yeah, it's great.
You also AJ, you were the best co-host I could have asked for. Thank you so much for your time. And
that's so over dramatic. I'm not the best, but thank you so much. I'll take it.
I mean, I've only had you were the third co-host I've ever had. And yeah,
see, you need a bigger sample size.
No. Thank you. Thank you so much. No, I know.
Of course.
But thank you. It was the right choice. So you brought a lot to this. So I greatly appreciate your time.
It's my pleasure.
Okay. Well, I will let you go and get on with the rest of your evening. And yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in and listening to the Void Signal Halloween special. Happy Halloween.
Yay. Happy Halloween.
Hooray. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
And we'll cut there. And that is that.
Okay.
Void Signal intro and outro music courtesy Processor. Visit processor2.bandcamp.com for more Processor. And visit voidsignal.net to help support the creation of more Void Signal. Thank you.